Do you ever wonder if you've been marked? You survived the spectral sales event. You've seen the haunting results of life consumed by cheap thrills and impulse buys, courtesy of Wally Wimp and the Emporium. Now we move beyond the satire. Tonight, we open the door to the true source of that mundane dread. This is the launchpad for a brand new series, Steel Shadows, Visions of Richard Matheson. Across 10 episodes, we will analyze how Matheson's iconic tales, from robot boxers and steel to the road rage paranoia of Duel, directly mirrored the shadows in his own life. We'll explore the real-life trauma of a World War II veteran, the painful losses that informed his domestic horror, and the Hollywood frustrations that fueled his sharpest satire. The fear we confront tonight is more fundamental. It's the realization that you are merely expected to conform, expected to vanish into the relentless pattern of the ordinary. Prepare to venture into the mind of a master, prepare to see the world as Matheson did, where the uncanny twist is never far from the mundane truth. The curtain is up. The shadows are gathering. SL Tonight, anthology, begins. Good evening, seekers of tomorrow's terror, and welcome to SL Tonight, where we forge the shadows of Richard Matheson, the sci-fi horror master who scripted 16 Twilight Zone episodes and birthed classics like I Am Legend. I'm Felix Lebeski, your host for Steel Shadows, Visions of Richard Matheson, a series lampooning his career through 10 stories that scarred him as much as they thrilled us. Born 1926 in New Jersey, World War II vet at 18, Matheson traded foxholes for pulp mags, channeling war's machines into tales of tech gone mad. In 1956, fresh from service, he wrote Steel, imagining robot boxing, a lampoon of his battlefield scars and Hollywood dreams. Tonight, we step into the ring. Here's Steel by Richard Matheson. The two men came out of the station rolling a covered object. They rolled it along the platform until they reached the middle of the train, then grunted as they lifted it up the steps, the sweat running around their bodies. One of its wheels fell off and bounced down the metal steps, and a man coming up behind them picked it up and handed it to the man who was wearing a rumpled brown suit. Thanks, said the man in the brown suit, and he put the wheel in his side coat pocket. Inside the car, the men pushed a covered object down the aisle. With one of its wheels off, it was lopsided, and the man in the brown suit, his name was Kelly, had to keep his shoulder braced against it to keep it from toppling over. He breathed heavily and licked away tiny balls of sweat that kept forming over his upper lip. When they reached the middle of the car, the man in the wrinkled blue suit pushed forward one of the seat backs so there were 4 seats, 2 facing 2. Then the two men pushed the covered object between the seats, and Kelly reached through a slit in the covering and felt around until he felt the right button. The covered object sat down heavily on a seat by the window. Oh, God, listen to him squeak, said Kelly. The other man, Pole, shrugged and sat down with a sigh. What'd you expect? He asked. Kelly was pulling off his suit coat. He dropped it down on the opposite seat and sat down beside the covered object. Well, we'll get some of that stuff as soon as we're paid off, he said worriedly. If we can find some, said Pole, who was almost as thin as one. He sat slunk back against the hot seat, watching Kelly mop at his sweaty cheeks. Why shouldn't we? Asked Kelly, pushing the damp handkerchief down under his shirt collar. They don't make it no more, Pole said with false patience of a man who's had to say the same thing too many times. Well, that's crazy, said Kelly. He pulled his hat and patted at the bald spot in the center of his rust-colored hair. There's still plenty of B2s in the business. Not many, said Pole, bracing one foot upon the covered object. Don't, said Kelly. Pole let his foot drop heavily, and a curse fell slowly from his lips. Kelly ran the handkerchief around the lining of his hat. He started to put the hat on again, and then changed his mind and dropped it on top of his coat. Christ, it's hot. It'll get hotter. Across the aisle, a man put his suitcase up on the rack, took off his suit coat, and sat it down, puffing. Kelly looked at him, then turned back. You think it'd be hotter in Maine or nah? He asked. Pole nodded. Kelly swallowed dryly. Wish we could have been in another of them beers, he said. Pole stared out the window at heat waves rising from the concrete platform. I had 3 beers, said Kelly. I'm just as thirsty as I was when I started. Yeah. Might as well have not had a beer since Philly, said Kelly. Yeah. Kelly sat there staring at Pole at a moment. Pole had dark hair and white skin, and his hands were the hands of a man who'd been bigger than Pole was. But the hands were as clever as they were big. Pole's one of the best, Kelly thought. One of the best. You think you'd be alright? He asked. Pole grunted and smiled for an instant without being amused. If you don't get hit. No, no, I mean it, said Kelly. Pole's dark, lifeless eyes left the station and shifted over to Kelly. So do I. Come on. Steele, you know just as well as me, he's shot to hell. That ain't true. All he needs is a little work, a little overhaul, and he'd be good as new. Yeah, a little 3-4 grand overhaul with parts they don't make no more. He looked out the window again. Oh, it ain't as bad as that. Jesus, the way you talk, you'd think he's ready for scrap. Ain't he? No, he ain't. Cole shrugged and his long white fingers rose and fell on his lap. Just 'cause he's old. Old? Ancient. Oh. Kelly took a deep breath of the hot air in the car and blew it out through his broad nose. He looked at the covered object like a father who was angry with his son's faults, angrier with those who mentioned the faults of his son. Plenty of fight left in him. Cole watched people walking on the platform. He watched a porter pushing a wagon full of piled suitcases. Well, is he okay? Kelly asked finally, as if he had hated to ask. Cole looked over at him. I don't know, Steele. He needs work. You know that. Trigger spring in his left arm's been wired so many times it's almost shot. He's got no protection on that side. Left side of his face all beat in. The eye lens is cracked. The leg cables is worn. They're pulled slack. Tension's gone to hell. Christ, even his gyro's off. Cole looked out at the platform again with a disgusted hiss. Not to mention the oil paste he ain't got in him, he said. We'll get him some, Kelly said. Yeah, after the fight. After the fight. What about before the fight? He'll be creaking around that ring like a goddamn steam shovel. It'd be a miracle if he goes 2 rounds. They'll probably ride us out of town on a rail. I don't think it's that bad. The hell it ain't. It's worse. Wait till that crowd gets a load of Battle and Maxo from Philadelphia. Oh Christ, they'll blow a nut. We'll be lucky if we get our $500. Well, the contract's signed. They can't back out now. I got a copy right in the old pocket. He leaned over and patted at his coat. That contract's for Battle and Maxo, said Cole. Not for this steam shovel here. Maxo's gonna do alright, said Kelly, as if he was trying hard to believe it. He's not as bad off as you say. Against a B7? Cole asked. It's just a starter B7, said Kelly. They ain't got the kinks out yet. Cole turned away. Battle and Maxo. 1 round Maxo. The Battle and Steam Shovel. Oh, shut the hell up. You're always knocking him down. Well, he'd be doing okay for 12 years now, and he'd keep on doing okay. So he needs some oil paste. He needs a little work. So what? With $500, we can get him all the paste he needs. And a new trigger spring for his arm. And new leg cables. And everything. Christ's sakes. He fell back against the seat, chest shuddering with breath, and rubbed at his cheeks with the wet handkerchief. He looked aside at Maxo. Abruptly, he reached over a hand and patted Maxo's covered knee clumsily, and the steel clanked hollow under his touch. You're doing all right, said Kelly to his fighter. The train was moving across the sun-baked prairie. All the windows were open, but the wind that blew in was like the blast from an oven. Kelly sat reading his paper, his shirt sticking wetly to his broad chest. Cole had taken his coat off too and was staring morosely out the window at the grass-tufted prairie that went as far as he could see. Maxo sat under his covering, his heavy steel frame rocking a little with the motion of the train. Kelly put down his paper. Not even a word. What'd you expect? They don't cover Maynard. Maxo ain't just some plunk from Maynard. He was a big time. You'd think they'd shrugged. Remember him. Why, for a couple prelims in a garden 3 years ago? It wasn't no 3 years, buddy. It was in 1994, said Pole. And now it's 1997. That's 3 years where I come from. It was late 94, said Kelly. Right before Christmas. Don't you remember it? Just for Marge and me. Kelly didn't finish. He stared down at the paper as if Marge's picture were on it, the way she looked the day she left him. What's the difference? They don't remember them, for Christ's sakes. There's a couple thousand of them damn things floating around. How could they remember them? About the only ones who get space are the champions and the new models. Cole looked at Maxo. I hear Mullen's putting on a B9 this year, he said. Kelly refocused his eyes. Yeah? He said uninterestingly. Hyper triggers in both arms and legs, all steel aluminum. Triple gyro, triple twisted router. God, they're beautiful. Kelly put down the paper. Think they'd remember him, he muttered. It wasn't just so long ago. His face relaxed in a smile of recollection. Boy, will I ever forget that fight. No one ever gives us a tumble. It was all Dimsy the Rock, Dimsy the Rock. 3-1 for Dimsy the Rock, fourth rank in light heavy, on his way to the top. He chuckled down in his chest. And did we ever put him away, he said. Ooh, I can see how the left cross now. Bang! Right in the chops. And old Dimsy the Rock hitting the canvas like a rock, yeah, just like a rock. He laughed happily. Boy, what a night, what a night. Will I ever forget that night? Cole looked at Kelly with a somber face. Then he turned away and stared at a dusty, sun-baked plane again. I wonder. Kelly saw the man across the aisle look again at the covered Maxo. He caught the man's eye and smiled, then gestured with his head towards Maxo. That's my fighter, he said loudly. The man smiled politely, cupping a hand behind one ear. My fighter, battling Maxo. Ever hear of him? The man stared at Kelly a moment before shaking his head. Kelly smiled. Yeah, he was almost a light heavyweight champ once. The man nodded politely. On an impulse, Kelly got up and stepped across the aisle. He reversed his seat back in front of the man and sat down facing him. Pretty damn hot. The man smiled. Yes, it is. No new trains out here yet, huh? No, not yet. Got all the new ones back in Philly. That's where my friend and I come from. And Maxo. Kelly stuck out his hand. The name's Kelly. Tim Kelly. The man looked surprised. His grip was loose. Maxwell, he said. Then he drew back his hand. He rubbed it unobtrusively on his pant leg. I used to be called Steel Kelly, said Kelly. Used to be in the business myself. Before the war, of course. I was light heavy. Oh? Yeah, that's right. Called me Steel because I never got knocked down once. Not once. I was even number 9 in the ranks once. Yeah. I see. The man waited patiently. My fighter, said Kelly, gestured towards Max over his head again. He's a light heavy too. We're fighting in Maynard tonight. You going that far? No. No, I'm getting off at Hayes. Oh, too bad, gonna be a good scrap. Let out a heavy breath. Yeah, he was fourth in the ranks once. He was back too. He knocked down Dimsy the Rock in late '94. Maybe you read about that. I don't believe. Oh, Well, it was East Coast papers. You know, New York, Boston, Philly. Yeah, it got a hell of a spread. Biggest upset of the year. He scratched his bald spot. He's a B2, you know, but that means he's the second model Mullen put out, he explained, seeing the look on the man's face. That was back in the, let's see, 90, I think? Yeah, 90. He made a smacking sound with his lips. Yeah, that was a good model, he said. The best. Max was still growing strong. I don't go for these new ones, you know, the ones made of steel and aluminum with the old doodads. Man stared at Kelly blankly. Too flashy, flimsy, nothing. Kelly bunched his big fist in front of his chest and made a face. Nothing solid. No, Mullen don't make 'em like Maxon no more. I see. Kelly smiled. Yeah, he used to be in the game himself, when there was enough men, of course, before the bans. Shook his head and then smiled quickly. Well, we'll take this B7. Don't even know what his name is. His face sobered in an instant, and he swallowed. We'll take him. Later on, when the man got off the train, Kelly went back to his seat. He put his feet up on the opposite seat and laid back his head. He covered his face with a newspaper. Kill shut-eye, he said. Cole grunted. Kelly slouched back, staring at the newspaper next to his eyes. He felt Maxo bumping against his side a little. He listened to the squeaking of Maxo's joints. You're alright, he muttered to himself. What? Pull I didn't say anything. When they got off the train at 6 o'clock that evening, they pushed Maxo around the station and onto the sidewalk. Across the street from them, a man sitting in his taxi called them. We got no taxi money. We can't just push them through the streets. Besides, we don't even know where Cooper Stadium is. What are we supposed to eat with then? We'll be loaded after the fight. I'll buy you a steak 3 inches thick. Sighing, Cole helped Kelly push the heavy Maxo across the street that was still so hot they could feel it through their shoes. Kelly started sweating right away and licking at his upper lip. God, how do they live out here? When they were putting Maxo inside the cab, the base wheel came out again and Cole, with a snarl, kicked it away. What are you doing? Kelly asked. Oh, shit. Cole got into the taxi and slumped back against the warm leather of the seat while Kelly hurried over the soft tar pavement and picked up the wheel. Christ's sakes, Kelly muttered as he got in the cab. Where to, Chief? Kruger Stadium. You're there. The cab driver pushed in the rudder button and the car glided away from the curb. What the hell's wrong with you? Kelly asked, pulling a low voice. Waited more than half a damn year to get us about, and you've been nothing but belly aches from the start. Some bout. Maynard, Kansas, the prize fighting center of the nation. It's a start, ain't it? It'll keep us in coffee and cakes a while, won't it? Put Maxwell back in shape, and if we take it, it could lead to... Bull glanced over disgustedly. I don't get you, Kelly said quietly. He's our fighter. What are you writing him off for? Don't you want him to win? I'm a Class A mechanic, Steele, Bull said in his falsely patient voice. I'm not a daydreaming kid. We got a piece of dead iron here, not a B7. It's a simple mechanics, Steele, that's all. Maxwell will be lucky if he comes out of that ring with his head still on. Billy turned away angrily. It's a starter, B7. Full of kinks, full of them. Sure. They sat silently a while looking out the window, Maxwell between them, his broad steel shoulders bumping against theirs. Kelly stared at the building, his hands clenching and unclenching in his lap as if he was getting ready to go 15 rounds. That's a B fighter you got there, the driver asked over his shoulder. Billy started and looked forward. He managed to smile. That's right, he said. Fighting tonight. Yeah, battling Maxo. Maybe you heard of him. Nope. He was almost lightweight, a heavyweight champ once, said Kelly. Is that right? Yes, sir. You heard of Dimsey the Rock, ain't you? Don't think so. Well, Dimsey the... Kelly stopped and glanced over at Pole, who was shifting irritably on the seat. Dimsey the Rock was number 3 in the light heavy ranks. Right on his way to the top, they all said. Well, my boy put him in the 4th round. Left crossed him, bang, almost put Dimsey through the ropes. It was beautiful. That right? Yes, sir. You get a chance, stop by tonight at the stadium. You'll see a good fight. Have you seen this Maynard Flash? Flash? You bet. Man, there's a fighter on his way. 1-7 straight. He'll be up there soon, you can bet all your life. Matter of fact, he's fighting tonight too, with some B2 heat from back east, I hear. Driver snickered. Flash will slaughter him, he said. Kelly stared at the back of the driver's head, skin tight across his cheekbones. Yeah? Man, he'll... The driver broke off suddenly and looked back. Hey, you ain't... He started and then turned front again. Hey, I didn't know, mister. I was only ribbing. Skip it. You're right. Kelly's head snapped around and he glared at the sour-faced Pole. Shut up, he said in a low voice. He fell back across the seat and stared out the window, his face hard. I'm gonna get him some oil paste, he said after they had ridden the block. Swell, said Pole. We'll eat the tools. Go to hell, said Kelly. The cab pulled up in front of the brick-fronted stadium and they lifted Maxo out on the sidewalk. While Pulp tilted him, Kelly squatted down and slid the base wheel back into its slot. Kelly paid the driver the exact fare and they started pushing Maxo towards the alley. Look, said Kelly, nodding towards the poster board in front of the stadium. The third fight listed was Maynard Flash, B7LH versus Battle and Maxo, B2LH. Big deal, said Pole. Billy's smile disappeared. He started to say something and pressed his lips together. He shook his head irritably and big drops of sweat fell to the sidewalk. Maxo creaked as they pushed him down the alley and carried him up the steps to the door. The base wheel fell out again and bounced down the cement steps. Neither one of them said anything. It was hotter inside, the air didn't move. Refreshing like a closet, Pole said. Get the wheel, Kelly said, and started down the narrow hallway, leaving Pole with Maxo. Pole leaned Maxo against the wall and turned for the door. Kelly came to a half-glass office door and knocked. Yeah, said a voice inside. Kelly went in, taking off his hat. The fat, bald man looked up from his desk. His skull glistened with sweat. I'm battling Maxo's owners, said Kelly. He extended his big hand, but the man ignored it. I was wondering if you'd make it, said the man whose name was Mr. Watto. Your fighter in decent shape? The best. The best. My mechanic, he's a Class A. Just took him apart, put him together again before we left Philly. The man looked unconvinced. He's in good shape. You're lucky to get about with a B2, said Mr. Watto. We ain't used nothing less than B4s for more than 2 years now. Fighter was after got stuck in a car wreck, though, and got ruined. Kelly nodded. Well, you got nothing to worry about. My fighter's in top shape. He's the one knocked down Dempsey's Rock in Madison Square a year or so ago. I want a good fight, said the fat man. You'll get a good fight, Kelly said, doing a tight pain in his stomach muscles. Max is in good shape. You'll see. He's in top shape. I just want a good fight. Kelly stared at the fat man a moment, and then he said, You got a ready room we can use? The mechanic and me'd like to get something to eat. Door down the hall on the right side, said Mr. Watto. Your bout's at 8:30. Kelly nodded. Okay. Be there, said Mr. Watto, turning back to his work. What about? You get your money after you deliver the fight. Kelly's smile faltered. Okay, see you then. Mr. Watto didn't answer. He turned for the door. Don't slam the door, Mr. Watto said. Kelly didn't. Come on, he said to the pole when he was in the hall again. He pushed Maxo down to the ready room and put him inside it. What about checking him over? Kelly said. What about my gut? I ain't eaten in 6 hours. Kelly blew out a heavy breath. All right, let's go then. He put Maxo in the corner of the room. We should be able to lock him in, Kelly said. Why, you think somebody's going to steal him? He's valuable, said Kelly. Sure, he's a priceless antique. Kelly closed the door 3 times before the latch caught. He turned away from it, shaking his head worriedly. As they started down the hall, he looked at his wrist and saw for the 50th time the white band where he pawned watch had been. What time is it? 6:25, said Paul. We'll have to make it fast. I want to check him over good before the fight. What for? Did you hear me? Sure. He's gonna take son of a bitch B7, Kelly said, barely opening his lips. Sure he is, with his teeth. Hurry up, Kelly said, ignoring him. We ain't got all night. Did you get the wheel? Cole handed it to him. Some town, said disgustingly as they came back in the side door of the stadium. I told you they wouldn't have any oil paste here. Why should they? B2s are dead. Max is probably the only one in 1,000 miles. Kelly walked quickly down the hall, opening the door of the ready room and went in. He crossed over to Maxo and pulled off the covering. Get to it. There ain't much time. Flung over a slow, tired breath, Cole took off his wrinkled blue coat and tossed it over the bench standing there against the wall. He dragged a small table over to where Maxwell was and rolled up the sleeves. Billy took off his hat and coat and watched while Cole worked loose the nut that held the tool cavity door shut. He stood with his hands on his hips while Cole drew out the tools one by one and laid them down on the table. Rust, Cole muttered. He rubbed a finger around the inside of the cavity and held it up, copper-coloring rust flaking off the tip. Come on, Kelly said irritably. He sat down on the bench and watched his full pried out the sectional plates on Maxo's chest. His eyes ran up over Maxo's leonine head. If I didn't see them pulls, he thought once more, I'd swear he was real. Only the mechanics in a bee fight could tell if it wasn't real. Men in there. Sometimes people were actually fooled and sent in letters complaining that real men were being used. Even her ringside, the flesh tones looked human. Holland had a special patent on that. Billy's face relaxed as he smiled fondly at Maxwell. Good boy, he murmured. Cole didn't hear. Kelly watched the sure-handed mechanic probe with his electric pick, examining connections and potency centers. Is he all right? He asked, without thinking. Sure, he's great, Cole said. He plucked out a tiny steel cage tube. If this doesn't blow out, he said. Why should it? It's subpar. I told you that after the last fight 8 months ago. We'll get him a new one after this bout. $75, muttered Pole, as if he were watching the money fly away on green wings. Drill hole, Billy said, more to himself than to Pole. Pole shrugged. He put back the tube and pressed in the row of buttons on a main autonomic board. Maxo stirred. Take it easy on the left arm, said Kelly. Save it. If it don't work here, it won't work out there, said Pole. He jabbed at a button and Maxo's left arm began moving with little circling motions. Pole pushed over the safety block switch that would keep Maxo from counterpunching and stepped back. He threw it right at Maxo's chin and the robot's arm jumped up with a hitching motion to cover his face. Maxo's left eye flickered like a ruby catching the sun. That eye cell goes, Pole said. It won't, said Kelly tensely. He watched Pole throw another punch at the left side of Maxo's head. He saw a tiny ripple of the plexo-covered cheek, and then the arm jerked up again. It squeaked. That's enough. It works. Try the rest of them. He's gonna get more than 2 punches thrown in his head, Pole said. His arm's alright. Try something else, I said. Pole reached inside Max and activated the blade cable senders. Maxwell began shifting around. He lifted his left leg and shook off the base wheel automatically. Then he was standing lightly on his black shoe feet, feeling at the floor like a cripple testing for stance. Pole reached forward and jabbed in the full button, then jumped back as Max's I-beam centered on him, and the robot moved forward, broad shoulders rocking slowly, arms up defensively. Christ, Pole muttered. They'll hear him squeaking in the back row. Kelly grimaced, teeth set. He watched Pole throw another right, and Max's arm lurched raggedly. His throat moved with a convulsive swallow, and he seemed to have trouble breathing the closed air in the little room. Pole shifted around the floor quickly, side to side. Maxwell followed lumberingly, changing direction with visibly jerking motions. Oh, he's beautiful, Pole said, stopping. Just beautiful. Maxwell came up, arms still raised, and Pole jabbed in under them, pushing the off button. Maxwell stopped. Look, we'll have to put him on defense, Steele, Pole said. That's all there is to it. He'll get chopped to pieces if we have him moving in. Kelly cleared his throat. No, he said. Oh, will you just use your head? He's a V2, for Christ's sakes. He's gonna get slaughtered anyway. Let's save the pieces. They want him on offense. It's in the contract. We'll turn away with a hiss. What's the use? Test him some more. What for? He's as good as he'll ever be. Will you do what I say? Tilly shouted, all the tension exploding out of him. Pole turned back and jabbed in a button. Maxwell's left arm shot out. There was a snapping noise inside it, and it fell against Maxwell's side with a dead clank. Tilly started up, his face stricken. Jesus, what did you do? He ran over to the pole and was pushing the button again. Maxwell's arm didn't move. I told you not to fool with that arm. What the hell is the matter with you? His voice cracked in the middle of the sentence. Pole didn't answer. He picked up his pry and began working off the left shoulder blade. So help me God if you broke that arm, Billy warned in a low, shaking voice. If I broke it? Listen, you dumb Mick. This heap's been running on borrowed time for 3 years now. Don't talk to me about breakages. Kelly clenched his teeth, his eyes small and deadly. Open it up. Bullshit. Son of a... Pole muttered as he got the plate off. You'll find another goddamn mechanic that could have kept the steam shovel together any better these last years. You just find one. Billy didn't answer. He stood rigidly, watching while Pole put down the curved plate and looked inside. When Pole touched it, the trigger spring broke in half and part of it jumped across the room. Billy stared at the solar pit with horrified eyes. Oh, Christ. Oh, Christ. Pole started to say something and then stopped. He looked at the ashen-faced Kelly without moving. Kelly's eyes moved to Pole. Fix it, he said hoarsely. Pole fell on him. Steele, fix it. I can't. The spring's been fixing to break for... You broke it, now fix it. Kelly clamped rigid fingers on Pole's arm. Pole jerked back. Let go of me. What's the matter with you? Are you crazy? He's got to be fixed. He's got to be. Steele, he needs a new spring. Well, get it. They don't have them here, Steele. I told you. And if they did have them, we didn't get the 1650 to get one. Oh, Jesus. His hand fell away, and he stumbled to the other side of the room. He sank down on the bench and stared without blinking at the tall, motionless Maxwell. He sat there a long time, just staring, while Pole stood watching him, the prize still in his hand. He saw Kelly's broad chest rise and fall with spasmodic movements. Kelly's face was a blank. If we don't watch him, muttered Kelly, finally. What? Kelly looked up, his mouth set in a straight, hard line. If you don't watch, it'll work, he said. What are you talking about? Kelly stood up and started unbuttoning his shirt. What are you... Pole stopped dead, his mouth falling open. Are you crazy? Kelly kept unbuttoning his shirt. He pulled it off and tossed it on the bench. Steele, you're out of your mind. You can't do that. Kelly didn't say anything. But Steele, you're crazy. We deliver a fight or we don't get paid. But Jesus, you'll get killed. Kelly pulled off his undershirt. His chest was beefy. There was red hair swirling around it. After shaving this off, Steel, come on, you. His eyes widened as Kelly sat down on the bench and started unlacing his shoes. They'll never let you. You can't make 'em think you're a. He stopped and took a jerky step forward. Steel, for Christ's sake. Kelly looked up at Pole with dead eyes. You'll help me. But nobody knows what Maxwell looks like, and only Watto saw me. If you don't watch the bouts, we'll be alright. But they won't know. The bees bleed and bruise too. Steel, come on. He took a deep breath and calmed himself. He sat down hurriedly beside the broad-shouldered Irishman. Look, I got a sister back east in Maryland. If I wire her, she'll send us the dough to get back. Billy got up and unbuckled his belt. Steele, I know a guy in Philly with a B5. Wants to sell cheap, Cole said desperately. We could scurry up the cash and steal. For Christ's sake, you'll get killed. It's a B7. Don't you understand? A B7. You'll be mangled. Kelly was working the dark trunks over Maxo's hips. I won't let you do it, Steele. I'll go to... He broke off with a sucked-in gasp as Kelly whirled around and moved over quickly to haul him to his feet. Kelly's grip was like the jaws of a trap, and there was nothing left of him in his eyes. You'll help me. You'll help me, or I'll beat your brains out on the wall. You'll get killed, then I will. Mr. Watto came out of the office as Pole was walking the covered Kelly towards the ring. Come on, come on. They're waiting on you. Pole nodded jerkily and guided Kelly down the hall. Where's the owner? Mr. Watto called after him. Pole swallowed quickly. In the audience. Mr. Watto grunted, and as they walked on, Pole heard the door to the office close. Breath emptied from him. I should have told him, he muttered. I'd have killed you, Kelly said, his face muffled under the covering. Crowd sounds leaked back into the hall now as they turned a corner. Under the canvas covering, Kelly felt a drop of sweat trickle down his temple. Listen, he said, you have to tell me off between rounds. Between what rounds? You won't even last one. Shut up. You think you're just up against some tough fighter? Cole asked. You're up against a machine, don't you? I said shut up. Oh, you dumb. If I tell you off, they'll know. They ain't seen a V2 in years. If anyone asks, tell them it's an oil leak. Sure, said Pole disgustingly. He bit his lips. Steele, you'll never get away with it. The last part of his sentence was drowned out as suddenly they were among the crowd, walking down the sloped aisle towards the ring. Kelly held his knees locked and walked a little stiffly. He drew in a long, deep breath and let it out slowly. He'd have to breathe in small gasps and exhalations through the nose while he was in the ring. People couldn't see his chest movement, or they'd know. Heat burdened in around him like a hanging weight. It was like walking around the sloping floor of an ocean of heat and sound. He heard voices drifting past him as he moved. They'll take him home in a box. Well, if it ain't rattling Maxo. And the inevitable scrap iron. Kelly swallowed dryly, feeling a tight drawing sensation in his loins. Thirsty, he thought. A momentary vision of the bar across from the Kansas City train station crossed his mind. Dim-lit booth, the cold fan breeze on the back of his neck, the icy, sweat-beaded bottle chilling his palm. He swallowed again. He hadn't allowed himself one drink in the last hour. The less he drank, the less he sweat, he knew. Watch it. He felt Pole's hand slide in through the opening in the back of the covering, felt the mechanic's hand grab his arm and check him. Ring steps, Pole said out of the corner of his mouth. Billy edged his right foot forward until the shoe tip touched the riser of the bottom step. Then he lifted his foot to the step and started up. At the top, Pole's fingers tightened around his arm again. Ropes, Pole said guardedly. It was hard getting through the ropes with the covering on. Billy almost fell, and hoots and catcalls came at him like spears out of the din. Billy felt the canvas get slightly under his feet, and then Pole pushed a stool against the back of his legs, and he sat down a little too jerkily. Hey, get that derrick out of here, shouted a man in the second row. Laughs and hoots. Scrap iron! Then Pole drew off the covering and put it down on the ring apron. Billy sat there staring at the Maynard flash. B7 was motionless, its gloved hands hanging across its legs. There's an imitation blonde hair, crew cut, growing out of its gold pores. Its face was that of an impassive Adonis. The simulation of muscle curve on its body and limbs was almost perfect. For a moment, Kelly almost thought the ears had been peeled away and he was in the business again, facing a young contender. He swallowed carefully. Hole crouched beside him, pretending to fiddle with an arm plate. Steel, don't, he muttered again. Billy didn't answer. He felt a desperate desire to suck in a lungful of air and bellow his chest. He drew in small patches of air through his nose and let them trickle out. He kept staring at the Maynard flash, thinking of the array of instant reaction centers inside that smooth arc of chest. The drawing sensation reached his stomach. It was like a cold hand pulling in at the strands of muscle and ligament. A red-faced man in a white suit climbed into the ring and reached up for the microphone, which was swinging down to him. Ladies and gentlemen, the opening bout of the evening, a 10-round light heavyweight bout from Philadelphia, the B2 battling Maxo. The crowd booed and hissed. They threw up paper airplanes and shouted, "Scrap iron!" His opponent, our own B7, the Maynard Flash. Cheers and wild clapping. The Flash's mechanic touched a button under the armpit, and the B7 jumped up and held his arms over his head in a victory gesture. The crowd laughed happily. Jesus, Paul muttered. I never saw that. Must be a new gimmick. Kelly blinked to relieve his eyes. 3 more bouts to follow, said the red-faced man, and then the microphone drew up and he left the ring. There was no referee. B fighters never clinched, their machinery rejected it, and there was no knockdown count. The fellow B fighter stayed down. The new B9, it was claimed by the mall and publicity staff would be able to get up, which would make for livelier or longer bouts. Cole pretended to check over Kelly. Steele, it's your last chance, he begged. Get out, said Kelly without moving his lips. Cole looked at Kelly's immobile eyes a moment and then sucked in a ragged breath and straightened up. Stay away from him, he warned as he started through the ropes. Across the ring, the Flash was standing in its corner, hitting its gloves together as if it were a real young fighter anxious to get the fight started. Kelly started up and Polo drew the stool away. Kelly stood, watching the B7, seeing how its eye centers were zeroing in on him. There was a cold sinking in his stomach. The bell rang. The B7 moved smoothly from its corner with a mechanical glide, its arms raised in a traditional way, gloved hands wavering in tiny circles in front of it. It moved quickly towards Kelly, who edged out of his corner automatically, his mind feeling abruptly frozen. He felt his own hands rise as if something else had lifted them, and his eyes were like dead wood under him. He kept his gaze on the bright, unmoving eyes of the Maynard Flash. They came together, the B7's left flicked out and Kelly blocked it, feeling the rock-hard fist of the Flash even through his glove. The fist moved out again. Kelly drew back his head and felt a warm breeze across his mouth. His own left shot out and banged against the Flash's nose. It was like hitting a doorknob. Pain flared in Kelly's arm, and his jaw muscles went hard as he struggled to keep his face blank. The B7 feinted with the left, and Kelly knocked it aside. He couldn't stop the right that blurred in after it and grazed his left temple. He jerked his head away, and the B7 threw a left that hit him over the ear. Kelly lurched back, throwing out a left that the B7 brushed aside. Kelly caught his footing and hit the Flash's jaw solidly with the right uppercut. He felt a jolt of pain run up his arm. The Flash's head didn't budge. He shot out a left that hit Kelly on the right shoulder. Kelly backpedaled instinctively. Then he heard someone yell, "Get him a bicycle!" And he remembered what Mr. Watto had said. He moved in again, his lips aching, they were pressed together so tightly. The left caught him under the heart, and he felt the impact shudder through his frame. Pain stabbed at his heart. He threw a spasmodic left, which banged against B7's nose again. There was only pain. Kelly stepped back and staggered as a hard right caught him high on the chest. He started to move back. The V7 hit him on the chest again. Kelly lost his balance and stepped back quickly to catch equilibrium. The crowd booed. V7 moved in without making a single mechanical sound. Kelly regained his balance and stopped. He threw a hard right that missed. The momentum of his blow threw him off center, and the Flash's left drove hard against his upper right arm. The arm went numb. Even as Kelly was sucking in a teeth-clenching gasp, the B7 shot in a hard right under his guard that slammed into Kelly's spongy stomach. Kelly felt the breath go out of him. His right slapped ineffectively across the Flash's right cheek. The Flash's eyes glinted. As the B7 moved in again, Kelly sidestepped, and for a moment the radical eye centers lost him. Kelly moved out of range dizzily, pulling the air in through his nostrils. "Get that heap out of there!" some man screamed. "Scrap iron! Scrap iron!" Breath shook in Kelly's throat. He swallowed quickly and started forward just as Flash picked him up again. Taking a chance, he sucked in breath through his mouth, hoping that his movements would keep the people from seeing. Then he was up to the B-7. He stepped in close, hoping to outtime an electrical impulse, and threw a hard right at the Flash's body. B7's left shot up, and Kelly's blow was deflected by the iron wrist. Kelly's left was thrown off too, and then the Flash's left shot in and drove the breath out of Kelly again. Kelly's left barely hit the Flash's rock-hard chest. He staggered back, the B7 following. He kept jabbing, but the B7 kept deflecting the blows and counter-jabbing with almost the same piston-like motion. Kelly's head kept snapping back. He fell back more and saw the right coming straight at him. He couldn't stop it. The blow drove in like a steel battering ram. Spears of pain shot behind Kelly's eyes and through his head. A black cloud seemed to flood across the ring. His muffled cry was drowned out by the screaming crowd as he toppled back. His nose and mouth trickled bright blood that looked as good as the dye they used in the B fighters. The rope checked his fall, pressing in rough and hard against his back. He swayed there, right arm hanging limp, left arm raised defensively. He blinked his eyes instinctively, trying to focus them. I'm a robot, he thought. A robot. The Flash stepped in and drove a violent right into Kelly's chest, a left to his stomach. Kelly doubled over, gagging. The right slammed off his skull like a hammer blow, driving him back against the ropes again. The crowd screamed. Kelly saw the blurred outline of the mannered Flash. He felt another blow smash into his chest like a club. With a sob, he threw a wild left that the B7 brushed off. Another sharp blow landed on Kelly's shoulder. He lifted his right and managed to deflect the worst of the left thrown in his jaw. Another right concaved his stomach. He doubled over. A hammering right drove him back on the ropes. He felt hot, salty blood in his mouth, and the roar of the crowd seemed to swallow him. Stay up, he screamed at himself. Stay up, God damn you! The ring wavered before him like a dark water. With a desperate surge of energy, he threw a right as hard as he could at the tall, beautiful figure in front of him. Something cracked in his wrist and hand, and a wave of searing pain shot up his arm. His throat-locked cry went unheard. His arm fell, his left went down, and the crowd shrieked and howled for the Flash to finish it. There were only inches between them now. The B7 rained in blows that didn't miss. Kelly lurched and staggered under the impact of them. His head snapped from side to side. Blood ran across his face in scarlet ribbons. His arm hung like a dead branch at his side. He kept getting slammed back against the ropes, bouncing forward and getting slammed back again. He couldn't see anymore. He could only hear the screaming of the crowd and the endless swishing and thudding of the B7's gloves. Stay up, he thought. I have to stay up. He drew in his head and hunched his shoulders to protect himself. He was like that 7 seconds before the bell when a clubbing right on the side of his head sent him crashing to the canvas. He sat there gasping for breath. Suddenly he started to get up, then, equally as suddenly, realized he couldn't. He fell forward again and lay on his stomach on the warm canvas, his head throbbing with pain. You hear the booing and hissing of the dissatisfied crowd. When Pole finally managed to get him up and slip the cover over his head, the crowd was jeering so loudly that Kelly couldn't hear Pole's voice. He felt the mechanic's big hand inside the covering, guiding him. But he fell down, climbing through the ropes, and almost fell again on the steps. His legs were like rubber tubes. Stay up. His brain still murmuring the words. In the ready room, he collapsed. Pole tried to get him up on the bench, but he couldn't. Finally, he bunched up his blue coat under Kelly's head and, kneeling, he started patting with his handkerchief at the trickles of blood. You dumb bastard, he kept muttering in a thin, shaky voice. You dumb bastard. Kelly lifting his hand and brushing away Pole's hand. Go get the money. What? The money! But now! Kelly's voice was barely intelligible. Pole straightened up and stood looking down at Kelly a moment. Then he turned and went out. Kelly lay there drawing in breath and exhaling with wheezing sounds. He couldn't move his right hand, and he knew it was broken. He felt the blood trickling from his nose and mouth. His body throbbed with pain. After a few moments, he struggled up on his left elbow and turned his head, pain crackling along his neck muscles. When he saw that Maxa was all right, he put his head down again. A smile twisted up one corner of his lips. When Pole came back, Kelly lifted his head painfully. Pole came over and knelt down. You get it? Kelly asked in a crusty whisper. Pole blew out a slow breath. Well? Half of it. Kelly stared up at him blankly, his mouth fallen open. His eyes didn't believe it. He said he wouldn't pay 5 C's for a one-rounder. What do you mean? He tried to get up and put down his right hand. With a strangled cry, he fell back, his face white. his head thrashed on a coat pillow, his eyes shut tightly. No, 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 no! Cole was looking at his hand and wrist. Jesus God, he whispered. Billy's eye opened and he stared up dizzily at the mechanic. He can't do that. Cole licked his dry lips. Steele, there ain't a thing we can do. You got a bunch of toughs in the office. I can't. And if he was going there, he'd know what you'd done. And he might even take back the 2.5. Billy lay on his back, staring up at the naked bulb without blinking. His chest labored and shuddered with breath. No, no. He lay there for a long time without talking. Cole got some water and cleaned off his face and gave him a drink. He opened up a small suitcase and patched up Kelly's face. He put Kelly's right arm in a sling. 15 minutes later, Kelly spoke. We'll go back by bus, he said. What? Cole asked. We'll go by bus. That'll only cost $50-$60. He swallowed and shifted on his back. That'll leave us almost 2 Cs. Then we can get him a new trigger spring and islands and... He blinked his eyes and held them shut a moment as the room started to fade again. An oil paste. Loads of it. He'll be good as new again. Billy looked up at Pulp. Then we'll be all set up. Max will be in good shape again. And we can get us some decent bouts. He swallowed and breathed laboriously. So all he needs is a little work. New spring, new islands. That'll shape him up. We'll show those bastards what B2 can do. Well, Max will show him, right? Cole looked down at the big old Irishman inside. Right, Steele. Right. And that was Steele, a 1956 story etched from Richard Matheson's soul. At 30 post-World War II infantry services in France, he was haunted by machines, tanks, guns that outlasted men. Writing in a California apartment, inspired by pulp sci-fi and fears of obsolescence, Steele lampooned his transition from soldier to writer. Humans versus unstoppable tech. Adapted for the Twilight Zone in 1963, it boosted his Twilight Zone run but typecast him as poor guy, frustrating his literary ambitions. The story affected him deeply, fueling later works like I Am Legend. Next time, we chase myths in the Splendid Source. Richard Matheson, the vet who punched back with steel, showed sci-fi's ring is rigged. His tale asks, are we obsolete in our own lives? Join us next time for Steel Shadows, Visions of Richard Matheson on SL Tonight. Good night.